welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. So, the French Grand Prix has come to the close at Yon Ricard, and what could be said? It was an okay race, wasn't it? There was some interesting things going on. There was the Ferrari doing Ferrari things as well. Oh, for fuck's sake, Ferrari. And as always now, it's said that this might be the last French Grand Prix for a number of years, or at least a little while, because the extension with Paul Ricard hasn't yet been extended, if it is going to be. And what I will say is that although Paul Ricard isn't my most favourite circuit in the world, based on the teams, the drivers, the engine suppliers, etc. that we have in Formula One, a French Grand Prix deserves to stay. I don't ever think it should be at Paul Ricard, but let's just try new ventures and let's try and get something. It's like Germany. We miss Germany so much, and it's an absolute travesty that there isn't a German Grand Prix, and it would be a travesty if there wasn't a French Grand Prix either. But please just make it somewhere else other than Paul Ricard. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Look out for bonus points. They're sometimes on offer for some drivers that do something extra special during the race, and I do award minus points on the rare occasion that someone does something extra special for all the wrong reasons. We haven't had them yet. Could it happen this race? Who knows? So we're going to take a look at the current point standings then. They're on the screen now. Take a look and see where your favourite driver is. Before I award the scores from this race weekend, see where they are. Could you see them rising or falling? There's certainly a lot to play for in this championship. There's a bit of a runaway leader at the moment, but that could all close up with one bad race and a Palmer being thrown into the mix. So we're going to kick things off with the race winner, of course, Max Verstappen. What a cracking drive by him this weekend. I think he drove really well, really clean, really tidy, really smart. And the Red Bull in practice looked like they'd got an extra gear compared to Ferrari. But then when qualifying in the race came, Charles seemed to have a match for him, absolutely 100%. They were there, weren't they? Ferrari, of course, taking the pole with Shalala and Max lining up alongside. So yeah, practice looked completely different to the race, and then in the early stages of the race, Max was all over Charles, but just couldn't get around him, and then dropped away as he cooked his tyres in the dirty air of the car ahead. And then, of course, we had the retirement, is all I'm going to call it for now, for Chalala. We'll come to him, of course, when we discuss him at the end of the video. But then that meant that Max pretty much had an easy victory from that moment on. So for Max Verstappen, gifted by a retirement from a rival, absolutely. But I think Red Bull overall would have just nipped it based on the Ferrari strategy that they gave Carlos Sainz. If they'd have done that to Leclerc, if he'd have stayed in the race, I think we'd have not been seeing him win anyway. So, yeah, I think Ferrari were always going to throw this one away. It's just that Charles threw it away before Ferrari did. So, there we go. I'm not talking about that. Let's talk about Max. And it's going to be a full 10 points on the board to Max Verstappen. Extends his lead in the championship to like 60 plus points now. A great solid weekend for the Constructors' Championship for Red Bull as well, of course. They'll extend their lead over Ferrari again. And yeah, overall, a perfect weekend by Max Verstappen. I don't think there was anything else he could do. And Charles retired so early on in the race, we couldn't see what the strategies were going to be like to say that he wouldn't have won it anyway. So there we go. Perfect 10 for Max Verstappen. And then we come to Lewis Hamilton on his 300th Grand Prix appearance. He secures his best finish of the season with P2. Fantastic effort, the first time a Mercedes has finished second this season, and it comes in the hands of Lewis Hamilton. And do you know what? He's drove really well. They were always saying that this Paul Ricard circuit would be good again for the Mercedes car, with it being flat curbs, etc., and quite a lot of runoff. It was just a good circuit for them to be at. Qualifying, they were sort of there or thereabouts, but not as good as they were hoping. And then in the race overall, I mean, both of them beat a Red Bull on merit. Ferrari threw it away. Sainz could have maybe come through. But, you know, overall, this was a really impressive weekend by Mercedes and by the Mercedes drivers as well. Lewis Hamilton qualified 4th, didn't he, if I remember rightly? And was certainly, I mean, a great start, got him straight ahead of Perez. And then he was running 3rd for all of that race. And then when Charles dropped out, he was running 2nd for all of that race. And the point is, we didn't see him on track, really, the Mercedes, particularly Hamilton, because he was lonely. He was doing a perfect P2 run, and that was really good to see. So, on his 300th race, he gets his best finish of the year. That's a good omen, that, and fantastic effort. Hungary, I'm not sure how the Mercedes will work well there, whether it will or it won't, but nonetheless, an encouraging sign going into the summer break. Even if your Hungary is a bit of a dud, they can come back stronger after that point. So it's going to be 10 points to Lewis Hamilton, a perfect 10, a great qualifying, a great start to the race, running in the podium positions all race long, and secured P2. Phenomenal stuff. And then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that top 5. And here he is finishing in P3, his 4th podium of the season, as Hamilton secures his 5th this race as well. So the first double podium for Mercedes. A fantastic effort. And again, he beat a Red Bull on merit this weekend. And that is encouraging signs, definitely encouraging signs for them. Something was just amiss with Perez this weekend, wasn't it? He was so strong here last year, and this year was just a bit of a dud for him, wasn't it? But we're talking about George at the moment, and what could be said for George's race? He had a poor start, didn't he? He dropped behind Lando at the start, I think, didn't he? He certainly dropped... Oh, Alonso, wasn't it? It was Alonso. Dropped behind Alonso at the start, but then got back past him after a couple of laps. Was running around solidly in 5th place. Charles had his problems. He got up to 4th, and then the later stages of the race where Perez's tyres had seemingly dropped off, he mounted an attack, and it was a bit unfortunate, wasn't it? He tried lunging it up the inside, and it was a great move, and it looked like it was perfectly legitimate move, and I'm not criticising the move at all, but he braked that late that he got up the inside, but then left Perez no room on the exit and squeezed him off the track. And that little bit of moaning on the radio saying our car was 94% ahead of Perez's, I deserve the corner on the exit. I weren't a fan of it, I've got to be honest, because he had the pace to do it properly. Toto had to come over the radio twice and tell him, calm down, George, you can get him on track. And then that virtual safety car, when Zhou Guanyu retired from the race, allowed him to do a fantastic opportunity. Caught Perez sleeping when it went green and just drove round him and then defended really well. So that conversation there was needless, George, where you were moaning for no good reason. The move was on and you did a good move. But the fact is you didn't leave Perez room on the exit of the apex to allow him to rejoin the track. You'd left him no room there. The initial move was fine, but you just overdrove yourself. If you'd left him a car's width, that would have been more than adequate, but you didn't, and that's why Perez went off. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science, and it just griped me a little bit that he was constantly moaning over the radio for about 2 laps, and I was like, pack it in, George, because you're annoying me. So it would have been a perfect 10, but I'm knocking him a point off for that moaning, so it's 9 points to George Russell, and I don't want to criticise his race in any way, shape or form. Qualifying wasn't quite on pace with his teammate, but in the race, after he got past Alonso after the difficult start, and was running around in 4th, the challenges and overtakes and the pressure he was putting Perez under was more than fair and amicable, but the moaning it just aggravated me, so I'm knocking a point off for that. But fantastic stuff nonetheless, George Russell. 9 points to you. And then we come to Sergio Perez, and in some respects was very, very close to getting a Palmer of the Week, but he avoids it just because there's so many more to hand out further on in the video. Ooh, exciting stuff. Perez, there's not really much that can be said. He qualified P3, and that was as good as his weekend got, really, wasn't it? It was always a few tenths off max, and then in the race pace, he just went nowhere. Hamilton got by him at the start. He never saw Hamilton again. He got close to him, but just could never overtake him. And that was that. He got elevated into 3rd place as a result of Leclerc going off, and then Russell got him. Fair and square, he was sleeping on the job when that virtual safety car ended. I don't know what he was doing, but it ended anyway. And he just wasn't ready to go. So George nipped round him, and he secured the podium, and not Perez. And with the car that Perez has got, he should have secured the podium. So for Sergio Perez, a really, really duff weekend, a naff weekend. A lot of head scratching at that side of the team, I'm sure. Perez just a P nowhere, really. P4 for him is nothing. So, finishes 4th, he's scoring 4 on the cruel room, and in some respects, I still think that's generous. So, it's a generous 4 for Sergio Perez. And then we come to Carlos Sainz. Oh, dear me. Dear me. I mean, he had the engine penalties. He was starting at the back anyway. That was one of those things. He did a cracking job and a stunning lap in Q2, didn't he? It was like almost a second quicker than Verstappen. Q3 played the fantastic wingman role to give Charles Leclerc the tow down the straight. and himself obviously sacrificing his own laps, but it didn't matter anyway. So Leclerc got pole as a result of that slipstreaming. And in the race, he drove a really good race to get up through the field. Got as high as about 7th or 8th, didn't he? And then he pitted. Or did he benefit, didn't he? He benefited from that safety car period when it all kicked off. So when Charles went off, he pitted then on lap 20, and I think then he was around 7th or 8th, and he came out in the position he was already in. That's right. So then he went on the medium tyres, and then he charged. He made this massive charge, pushing, doing really well, climbing his way through the field, overtaking George, overtaking Perez. He was getting there. He was about to get Hamilton, then they boxed him. With 10 laps to go, they boxed him, and I don't know. I mean, he was on the medium tyres, and yes, there was a blister, but surely when you're in this position where you've still got incredible pace on really shit tyres, would you not just have stayed out? He got that 5-second time penalty anyway for the unsafe pit release that happened during the safety car period, which weren't Sainz's fault. He just has to go when the team tell him. And I just think it's another missed opportunity. I mean, if his tyres have exploded, we'd have all been moaning at Ferrari and saying, why didn't you pit him? But I think I'd have gone for that. I'd have gone, look, you've got more than enough pace here. He gets P5 and fastest lap, but I don't know. It's a difficult one. So, yeah, Ferrari thrown it all away once again, in my humble opinion. But we'll see. So, for Carlos Sainz, I think he drove brilliantly. It's going to be 8 points on the board to him. To be honest, I don't think there's anything more he could have done. But I don't penalise teams anymore because I don't do a team wall. And no, I'm not bringing it back. But for Carlos Sainz, 8 points on the cruel room. And in fairness, that's just a penalty towards Ferrari themselves for being shit this weekend once again. So yeah, sorry Carlos, but you take a little bit of a hit there. But I think it'd have been on the podium. It would have been on the podium this weekend. Even with that 5-second time penalty added on to his race rather than serving it in the pits, it'd have been P3 at the very least. 8 points to Carlos Sainz. And then we come to Fernando Alonso, and what could be said other than what an incredible drive by the Alpine driver there. Incredible stuff to secure P6. He drove really well, didn't he? He got a great launch, great start, was up into P4, tumbled down a little bit, of course, when George got back past him, and then when Sainz came through the field, and then came through the field again. But overall, I just think that Alonso's just got this car sussed now. He had a difficult start to the season, a lot of bad luck on his side and as well as the team side with problems and incidents, but now he's got it hooked up and he's just driving incredibly well. And they came over the team radio like, look out, McLaren's behind. He's like, yeah, I've got it sussed, I'm just burning their tyres out. Thanks very much for letting me know, though. And I thought, you know what? You've driven really well. And he delivered on the promise, didn't he? Because Norris ended up like 3 seconds back from him or something because he cooked the tyres. What a smart drive by Fernando Alonso. It's going to be a perfect 10 to him, and he is having a great form now. After he's finally scored those points, he's just having a continuous run of them and drove incredibly well. So well done to Fernando Alonso. 10 points to you. And then we come to Lando Norris. And what could be said for Lando? A great lap in qualifying to split the Mercedes. That is definitely worth mentioning. In the race itself, he lost out to Alonso at the line and then just could never get him back. A bit like a Perez situation almost, isn't it? Once Hamilton got past Perez, never got past him again. I really do think Lando is driving incredibly well this year. I think he's doing the best job he can with the car he's got. It's damage limitation, isn't it, between the McLaren and the Alpine team. Alpine snatched the 4th place in the Constructors from them now as well, so that battle is getting incredibly fierce. Alonso's running in his prime. Lando's doing all he can in the car and equipment he's got. And I think P7's a great result. I think it really is. I think he's done a good job there and deserves recognition for that. Yeah, overall, a great job, but should he have beaten Alonso? I think he needed to. You know, I'm not saying he should have done, but in my mind he needed to for that Constructors' Championship. This position could be the crucial one that decides it either way. So for Lando Norris, is going to be 9 points on the board for him this weekend. I think he drove really well. That qualifying lap was impressive. Bit of a difficult start off the line, though, meant that Alonso slipped through, and then he had no answer to return for that, and that's the main driver he's battling with right now. So for Lando Norris, it is 9 points on the crawl room. Next up is Esteban Ocon securing P8 at his own Grand Prix. So well done, Ocon, picking up some points there in front of the French crowd, giving them something to cheer about. And could it have been more? I think it should have been more. I think judging by where Alonso was today on pace, I think he should have at least been ahead of Norris, but he had that early contact in the race, didn't he, with Yuki Tsunoda, spinning him round and ultimately retiring Yuki from the race, which gave him a 5-second time penalty to serve in the pits. And that 5-second time penalty could have made all the difference to him finishing ahead of Norris this weekend. So, yeah, a home race for Ocon, not the home race he would have been after, though. I'm pretty sure he would have liked to have finished at least ahead of both McLarens, not just one of them. And he drove really well. He did drive well when he needed to, but that incident at the start, the qualifying wasn't as good as Alonso. You know, it was all just like Alonso's favour again this weekend, like we've seen so much this year now. Alonso's found his form, and Ocon just hasn't quite got that ability to match him at the moment. So, something to look on and work on for the next weekend's race, but will remain to be seen. But for now, Esteban Ocon, it's 7 points on the crawl room, and possibly a generous 7 as well, because he did take Yuki out of the race ultimately, and was punished with a 5-second time penalty. So, all a bit of a shame there, but he did score points in his home Grand Prix, so a little bit generous. 7 points to Esteban Ocon. And then we come to Danny Ric finishing in P9 and once again escapes disqualification, because once again, I think he drove really well, matching his teammate. Okay, he was out in Q2 and Lando got through into Q3, and the impressive qualifying there, and not so good for Ricciardo, but with penalties meant he started 9th in the race, so only a few positions between the two of them. And overall, it was a good race because they were together again, weren't they? You know, throughout the most part of the race, they were racing together, you know, in 7th and 8th, 8th and 9th, whatever it would have been, they were racing together. And Ocon just slipped through towards the end there on aging tyres. So, like, Norris couldn't get past that Alonso. Ocon did get past Ricciardo with the tyre wear. So, you know, overall, I think Ricciardo did a solid job this weekend. A great drive from him. Picking up the points is what McLaren need from him. I'm not expecting, you know, special results, and I know I might have over-exaggerated with that, saying he needs to beat Lando now to avoid disqualification. He doesn't. He needs to be within the ballpark of Lando. He does need to beat him at some point, though. I can't just keep letting him finish a couple of places behind him or one place behind him. But while he's picking up the points, staying out of trouble, not having silly accidents in race, qualifying, practice, etc., you know, I think he deserves to stay on this Crawl Room Championship. So it is going to be 8 points for Danny Ric at the moment. Maybe a point generous there, I will admit. But he didn't pick up a 5-second time penalty and didn't clatter into people like Ocon did, and I gave him 7. So I think Danny Ric, with the car he's got at the minute, he's extended his contract definitely for 2023 with McLaren. Not extended, it was already extended, but they've actually honoured the contract now. So, confidence boost he needs, picking up a couple more points. It's nothing special, it's not the Danny Ric we know, but based on previous race weekend's results, where we've been slating him finishing 14th while Norris is up in 5th, for example, this weekend's certainly more encouraging for him and continues his form from the previous race. So yeah, Danny Ric, 8 points on the Crawl Room. And last of the points finishers is Lance Stroll with that Aston Martin, and there wasn't really much to say, was there, about Lance Stroll? He was running around in the 11th, 10th area for pretty much the majority of the race after the start. And to be honest with you, it only kind of got a bit lively on the last lap when we realised, oh, Stroll's actually racing here with his teammate. And then at the final corner, Stroll parked the bus, so Vettel had to jump on the brakes to avoid clattering into the back of him, and he went and stole P10. Now, once again, this causes absolute controversy between the F1 community, going, get rid of him, get rid of him. I saw someone calling him a terrorist. So, I mean, come off it. What do we do? Do we just let him have... come through, mate. Come through, take me point. Come through. If we're not racing, what are we doing? And the thing that annoys me is, Mick was doing this to Hamilton all throughout the sprint race in Austria, the main race in Austria, and he were hailed a hero. Stroll does it once at the final corner of the final lap for the final points paying position against his teammate, who he obviously desperately wants to beat, and Stroll's not had that many points this year, and he's suddenly he's a bad guy. Oh, this is unacceptable. You can't just stomp on the brakes like that mid-corner. Yes, of course you can. It's a racing tactic. You make sure that the car behind you can't get the acceleration out the corner to drag you down the line. That's how it works. That's racing. And if anyone's got a problem with that, then there's the unsubscribe button there. You can press that and you can fuck off and not deal with this anymore. Because I just hate it when people get annoyed at racing. Like, that was racing. It's like Silverstone when they're all shoving each other off the track and they're flying everywhere, and through came Hamilton. That was the best piece of racing we had this year. And then people go, he was off the track, there were a car off the track, get rid of him, give him a penalty. Oh, fuck off. Will you fuck off, the lot of you? You all annoy me. Do you know what? All the fans annoy me at the minute. Everyone's annoying me. Piss poor. I just hate it. There's racing and there's racing. You know, I don't think people... do you know what? Drive to Survive fans, fucking dumb eye tits him. Anyway, that's me ranting about people. So yeah, Lance Stroll is not my favourite person in the world. But did he deserve that P10? Yes. Did he get it fairly? Yes. That's the end of that. You know, I don't have to... Oh, it does my head in. Everyone knows how much I hate Stroll and I'm defending him. So that must mean he did something right, for God's sake. So yeah, Lance Stroll, it's 8 points on the crawl room. Fantastic, fantastic battle with your teammate there at the end. Seb just fell short. If he wanted to get past him, should have done it on the DRS straight, shouldn't he? What more do you want? 8 points to Lance Stroll. And as mentioned, we come to Stroll's teammate Sebastian Vettel finishing P11, just missing out on that final points paying position. And yeah, he just came a little bit short, didn't he? But I think overall, an encouraging weekend by Aston Martin to be so close to the points. Bit of a shame that it wasn't for 9th and 10th and that both drivers could have took the glory there and scored points. But that's racing, and on Aston Martin's 100th anniversary of ever starting a Formula 1 race, I think that's an encouraging sign for him. P10, P11, you know, you're on the cusp of points there. You pick up one. It's nothing stunning. It's nothing what we were expecting at the start of the year. I think I would tip him as the 4th best team, so I'm a little bit off with that. But, you know, nonetheless, a great weekend overall. Seb drove really well. No arguments with the racing that he did with his teammate. His teammate were fair enough in his defence. And there we go. So it's a solid 7 to Sebastian Vettel there. I think he drove really, really well. But Stroll pipped him, and I give Stroll 8. So Seb gets 7. There you go. Easy peasy, chocolate squeezy. 7 points to Seb. Next up is the curious case of Pierre Gasly. It's like curious case of Alexander Albon from a couple of years back, isn't it? Where is Gasly going? Where's he been? What's happened? I think there must be something that's just not with him this year. I don't think the car's working for him particularly well. I just don't think anything's going his way. He had a difficult race this weekend once again. Tried making a move on someone, and Albon, wasn't it? Massively outbraked himself at the chicane, had to go through the bollards. In the end, P12's a good result, but Yuki qualified 8th. Gasly was down in P16, was it? Or something daft like that. So yeah, overall it wasn't the best, was it? For Gasly once again, getting out-qualified by his teammate. In the race, we couldn't really see what his teammate was going to do in comparison to him, because he got took out. But Gasly, a lonely weekend this weekend, and I want to give him a middle-of-the-road 5. 5 this weekend for Pierre Gasly. Encouraging signs later on in this race where he was overtaking and doing some nice moves. But I just think that AlphaTauri should be in the points, and I don't think it's getting them. So yeah, there we go. Middle-of-the-road 5 to Pierre Gasly. And then we come to Alexander Albon in the Williams. And Alex, once again, the qualifying okay. Got through into Q2 as a result of mixed Schumacher's lap time deletion. And then in the race itself, he got up into P11. He was the heights of P11, wasn't he? But then Stroll, Vettel, and who else was it? Obviously, Sainz nipped through as well at some point. And obviously then towards the end, Gasly got him as well. So P13, though, for that Williams, I think they were encouraged, and I think they were hoping for a little bit more this weekend. Latifah got all the updates that Albon had, and I think they updated both cars more than we saw at the previous race weekend as well. So it was an heavily updated car. Practice looked good. Qualifying didn't deliver, and then in the race they just fell short, I think, in the end. I don't think the safety car, when they came out, and the virtual safety cars, I don't think they helped him in any way, shape or form. I think it hindered them more than assisted them. So nonetheless, though, Alexander Albon, a good drive. He was a bit quiet this weekend, didn't see much of him, but that means he's keeping out of trouble, I suppose, because we only ever seem to focus on the front runners these days now. You can see the battles in the leaderboard, changing up position, down position, up position, down position. And then do we see any of it? Absolutely not. We're just too busy watching one car go around that's leading. Needs to be sorted out, that, but there we go. That's Formula 1 for you. We're focused on the money at the front rather than the great battle at the back and the excitement. So nonetheless, though, for Alexander Albon, an encouraging weekend once again for Williams and for Alex. Maybe fell a little bit short of their expectations based on what they were hoping for, But I think, once again, strong base to build on. Maybe come strong in Hungary, where they had a double points finish last year, Williams, remember. Of course, it were crazy circumstances, but anything can happen. So it's going to be 8 points to Alexander Albon. Next, we come to Valtteri Bottas. Oh, dear. What a disastrous day for the Alfa Romeo squad. Absolutely nothing going for him this weekend, was there, at all? Bottas just seemed to struggle. He struggled to get off the line and slumped all the way down to like 15th, 16th after start. He qualified 13th, didn't he, or 12th, and ended up starting around 11th and 12th. Something like that anyway, after the penalties for K-Mag and Sainz. And then he just never ran in the points, unfortunately. He just never ran in those points-paying positions. He was just mizzling around 15th, 13th, 14th, somewhere around there. Then he had an additional pit stop prior to Zhou retiring, which put him down in 17th, and then here he is finishing second to last of the runners. So nothing special this weekend by Bottas. A race weekend to forget by Alfa Romeo. Not even that much to say, to be honest, because there's not that much to praise or criticise, really. It just didn't happen for him this weekend. A poor start, really, just put pay to his entire race. So, Bottas, 3 points on the cruel room, and after such a strong start for Alfa Romeo, these coming first races, it's just all kind of gone begging these last few, and it's a big, big shame to see as they lose their grip on, what are they, 6th in the Constructors at the minute, but we're close to Alpine. Alpine have now elevated themselves to 4th. If Alfa Romeo had kept their form that they had in the early stages of the race, they could have been battling for 4th right now in the Constructors, but as it is, they're sat where they are, and seemingly not making any progress at the minute because they've kind of stalled out and stopped scoring points, which is a shame to see. But for Valtteri Bottas, it's just 3 points on the cruel room. And then we come to 15th place, which is the last of the finishers, of course. It's Mick Schumacher. There's not really much that can be said for Mick's race weekend other than what a shame, really. It was all unfortunate, wasn't it? It was unfortunate in qualifying. He cut turn 3. Track limits are track limits, and I'm not against that at all. I think it's great that we've got some definition now over what a fucking racing line is and where the edge of the track is. So yeah, Mick was unlucky in that sense, but there we go. What can you do? Got his lap time deleted, which meant he started 19th, was it? Elevated to 17th with Sainz and K-Mag, his teammates, starting at the back. Made great progress through the field. The pair of them got up to 13th and 14th, the two Haasers racing together. They elected to pit early to do a guaranteed 2-stop race for the pair of them because they knew that once they'd stalled out in a position, they were never going to go further forward. We may as well try and get them on pace. And it looked to be working. You could see K-Mag and Mick just eating away at the back of the pack, eating away, and they got to about 10, 11 seconds where it was previously 18. And Charles put it in the wall. And then that undid all of their race because they lost all that time pitting in green flag conditions. The safety car came out, everyone ahead of them got a free pit stop, and then from there on it was just trying to make the way through. After the safety car restart, he tried making a move round Zhou, and Zhou got a snap of oversteer, tagged the back of Mick's car, spent him pirouetting. It was like he was never going to stop. It was like a spinning top. It was like watching bloody Nikita Mazepin all over again, once again, from last year. So, yeah, a really unfortunate race weekend by Mick's standards, and not fully to blame for any of it, to be honest. You know, his lap time deletion was unlucky, but nonetheless made great pace in the race in the early stages. And then it all came undone with the strategy as well as the contact. So yeah, middle of the road 5 to Mick Schumacher this weekend. We've seen highs from him the previous 2 races. And this weekend it all came undone for Haas as well as Mick. So big shame for that. So middle of the road 5 to Mick Schumacher. And then we come to the first of the retirements on this list. The last in the race, of course. And it is Zhou Guanyu.
Alfa Romeo were in talks with me in regards to replacing Stroll for 2023. Sadly, after his Silverstone crash, they told me the deal was off because even I couldn't crash that spectacularly.
And there we have it, a big, big shame for Zhou Guanyu. Is that his first Palmer of the season? I think it could be, actually, thinking about it. I think it might be, if not, he's only ever had one before. But there we go, for Zhou Guanyu, certainly one of the first, if not the first Palmer of the week for him on this scoreboard. And it is a shame to give him one, but this weekend was nothing. You know, he's had a couple of difficult race weekends here and there in the season, and rookie errors have allowed to happen. You know, that's what happens when you're the only rookie in the field, actually. So yeah, mistakes happen, things like that. But this race weekend for me, he just incredibly fell short, didn't he? Out in Q1 once again. What happened then? We didn't really have any pace in the race behind his teammate who was running around in second to last, and he was last. Then we had the contact with Mick, which took his front wing off. Then he was 40 seconds behind the rest of the field. And then ultimately he pulled off the road and retired. So yeah, big shame. I didn't want to give it him. I really don't like giving rookies too much criticism, but this weekend was massively off. And not just for Joe, but for the Alfa Romeo all weekend, to be honest. I wasn't expecting anything great from him, but taking out a car and having no pace as well as taking out a car really just compounds it, unfortunately. So yeah, for Zhou Guanyu it is Palmer of the Week. And next up we come to Nicholas Latifi.
Nicholas Latifi is my arch nemesis. How come Josh doesn't criticise him the way he did with me? He must have a thing for Canadians.
And there we have it, the Palmers are coming thick and fast now, aren't they? Wow, oh wow, Nicholas Latifi. Palmer of the Week for him, mainly because the updates, we expected so much. And where did he qualify? Last. And where was he running around in the race? Pretty much last. He started having an encouraging sign here. He actually caught up K-Mag on merit, and I thought, do you know what? Fair play to him for that. And then what did he do? He gave K-Mag no room at all. Like, turn one, I've got him, and now I'm just going to take my normal racing line while K-Mag's still there. Spun himself around like a top. You spin me right round, baby. It's normally reserved that for Vettel, but I've used it there anyway. But yeah, he sent himself spinning round and tumbling down to the back of the pack. And yeah, he deserves a Palmer. A lot of people have been saying it's been long overdue, but the way I've seen it is that Latifi's doing Latifi things. We always know what Latifi's capable of, which is nothing. But when people do less of a job than Latifi, that's when they get the Palmers and Latifi avoids them. Well, this weekend, he can't avoid a Palmer because he was diabolical. And I will give him a final warning as well. It's final warning time. So we've had Yuki Tsunoda disqualified already. We've had Ricciardo that's escaped disqualification after his final warning a couple of races ago. Here now at the French Grand Prix, I am giving Nicholas Latifi his final warning to kick it up a gear, pick it up, stop being shite, or you will be disqualified as well on the cruel room. So really needs to watch out now, Nicholas. I think that's only his second or third Palmer, but he's been lucky because other drivers have done worse than him to avoid more. So, you know, Mick had that bad spell, Yuki had that bad spell, and, you know, that's how it's happened. It's meant that Latifi's avoided him. But now it is final warning time for Nicholas Latifi. If he doesn't book his ideas up, then he will be disqualified. But for now, it's Palmer of the Week to Nicholas Latifi. And then we come to Kevin Magnussen, the car that Latifi took out of the race. What could be said? He's a bit like Mick, really, isn't he? Bit like Mick. It was going so well, he had engine penalties anyway, so there was no point him doing any laps in Q3. Started at the back, made his way through greatly up into the 13th place area. Elected to confirm the sell for a two-stop strategy, and then that came undone, just like Mick did when the safety car period came out. Everyone got a free pit stop ahead. He was battling his way through the field, got as high as about 13th again though, K-Mag, and then it all came undone when he had contact with Latifi and someone slipped through on K-Mag, which made him a bit unsettled. I think someone nipped back through him who'd previously overtaken Gasly, I think it were, that was on the charge then. Gasly got through, so then Latifi tried to capitalise with having DRS, and took him clean out, really. So for Kevin Magnussen, I am going to award him 4 points on the crawl room, giving him a point less than his teammate just because his teammate finished despite contact and K-Mag didn't. Although I don't blame K-Mag. I think, you know, when you're racing around 14th, 15th place, just let him have it. You can get Latifi. He'll probably spin off ahead of you anyway. So, you know, although I do fully 99.9% blame Latifi for the incident, I just think Kevin could have used his head there and think, look, I'm already tumbling down the order. I'm doing a bit crap. You know, it's gone wrong. This race weekend's a write-off. Let's not damage the car. Let's just bring it home in whatever position it is. And unfortunately, he didn't do that. So that's the only reason I'm knocking a point off. But it was a real unfortunate weekend this weekend by Haas. I've said before, Haas have had these really difficult races and it's all been self-inflicted. This one, they just had a strategy and they wanted to run with it and the safety car just came out at the wrong time. So yeah, 4 points to Kevin Magnussen. Then we come to Yuki Tsunoda, disqualified on the cruel room already, so I don't award him points, but as you'll have all noticed, he got wiped out by Ocon at the start, which was a big shame. Caused a lot of floor damage, side pod damage. He elected to carry on after stopping, but was like tumbling down right at the back. He was like 18 seconds behind Latifah and losing time. So when the safety car came out, he popped into the pits and retired. So a bit of unfortunate weekend for Yuki this weekend after a strong qualifying. As mentioned, I don't score any points anyway because he is disqualified, but this one wasn't his fault. So, disqualified for Yuki Tsunoda already on the cruel room, and just an unfortunate weekend for him. And then the last person on this list, it is of course Sha-la-la.
Halfway through the season and Gene Haas hasn't called me yet about my seat in F1. That must mean Mick has scored points. Oh, bugger!
It just had to be, didn't it? It just had to be Palmer of the week for Sha-la-la. Oh, thrown it away just like we saw in Imola. And then this is the problem, isn't it? This is what I keep saying about Ferrari. If the team don't throw it away with strategy or reliability, the driver throws it away with silly errors. And Charles himself admitted that this one was a silly error. It was his mistake. Oh, sha-la-la. Oh, dear. Palmer of the week once again. What a disaster. Could he have won this weekend? I think yes. But I think Ferrari had bottled the strategy so he'd have finished on the podium but wouldn't have won. Is my personal perspective on that. I think that Red Bull would have won based on a bad Ferrari strategy had himself not bottled it. So there we go. That's my personal opinions, but it doesn't matter anyway because he crashed himself out of the race. Disastrous stuff once again and more points thrown away. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But there we go. So Palmer of the week for Sha-la-la. So there we have it, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the French Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The scoreboard updated after my race weekend ranting is on the screen now. Check it out, take a look. Does it affect your driver's position? Have they moved up? Have they moved down? What do you think to the top of the groupings there? It's all getting a bit tight again at the top now. Let me know. Let me know everything you think of about this scoreboard because we're going to have a long time to mull it over after next week because we've got a summer break coming up, haven't we, after Hungary next weekend. Really looking forward to seeing how we get on there. So as always, a massive thanks go out to Dan of Mushy Gaming for the fantastic scoreboard that is on the screen for you to look at. Without him, this series will be more pointless than it already is, and who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for those fantastic Jolie and Palmer skits that you all know and love. I've got a quick announcement to make if you've made it this far into the video, which 99.9% of you wouldn't have done. But unfortunately, next weekend's Cruel Room will be on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It won't be a Monday upload. It will still premiere at Tuesday at 6 o'clock though, so make sure you set your reminder for then. I'm at Kendal Calling, a festival throughout Friday to Sunday. I won't have any access to any internet while I'm there, and I'll be thoroughly enjoying myself in a festival field environment, so you can imagine there'll be plenty of singing along. I won't have a voice probably come Tuesday, but I'll be trying my best anyway. So there'll be singing, there'll be booze, there's a load of friends that are going with me, and I'm meeting there, so I cannot wait for that. So yeah, that's why there will be a delay. But please, allow me some fun. It's the summer season, and I'm going to my first festival. I cannot wait. So, thank you all so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I'm sorry I can't be with you Monday next week at 6 o'clock, but I will be with you Tuesday. In what state, I don't know. I might still have mud on my face. I might be hoarse. I might not be able to speak. Yeah, I might be incredibly tired, but please forgive me that. But I will see you Tuesday, 6 PM for the premiere. I'll remind you all next weekend as well, of course. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. And as always, much love.